It will be said to this people and to Jerusalem, a hot wind comes from me out of the bare heights in the desert toward my poor people, not to winnow or cleanse, a wind too strong for that. Now it is I who speak in judgment against them. For my people are foolish, and they don't know me. They are stupid children. They have no understanding. They are skilled in doing evil, but do not know how to do good. I looked on the earth, and lo, it was waste and void, and to the heavens they had no light. And I looked on the mountains, and lo, they were quaking, and all the hills moved to and fro. And I looked, and lo, there was no one at all, and all the birds of the air had fled. I looked, and lo, the fruitful land was a desert, and all its cities were laid in ruins before the Lord, before his fierce anger. And our second reading comes from Luke chapter 15, verses 1 through 10. And this is Jesus is speaking to the crowds. Now all the tax collectors and sinners were coming near to listen to him. And the Pharisees and scribes were grumbling and saying, "This fellow welcomes sinners and eats with them." So he told them this parable. Which one of you, having 100 sheep and losing one of them, does not leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after the one that is lost until he finds it? When he has found it, he lays it on his shoulders and rejoices. And when he comes home, he calls together his friends and neighbors, saying to them, "Rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep that was lost." Just so I tell you, there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who need no repentance. Or what of a woman having 10 silver coins? If she loses one of them, does not light a lamp, sweep the house, and search carefully until she finds it? When she has found it, she calls together her friends and neighbors, saying, "Rejoice with me, for I have found the coin that I had lost." Just so I tell you, there is joy in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents. And this is the word of God for us, the people of God. Thanks be to God. So, it's been 15 years. 15 years since 9/11. You guys remember where you were when you heard the news? Now, I wasn't old enough to remember the Kennedy assassination. That happened when I was a year old. But people say they remember exactly where they were when they heard that. 9/11 was this generation's event that we remember. I was an assistant principal at Northwest High School, and somebody came into the building in the morning and said, "Something just happened. A plane just hit the World Trade Center." And we couldn't imagine that happening. And we thought, well, it had to be some kind of an accident or something. And we turned the television on, and we were watching, and while we were watching, the second plane hit, the second tower. And we were horrified, because clearly it wasn't an accident, it was intentional. And so we started to wonder how this could happen and who, and pretty soon in the whole school, all of the televisions that we had were turned on, and we were trying to explain to high school students what was going on. And we didn't know what was going on. And I was in the library. We had classes that didn't have TVs in their rooms. That were bringing their classes, and we were watching, and I was trying to explain what was going on. And then the first tower fell. It fell. You guys remember watching? If you didn't see it happening live on television, we saw the replay of it over and over on the news. The building fell. And we knew that all of those people that were in that building, especially the ones that were up above where that fire was, we knew there was no way for them to get out. We knew that all those people were crushed. They were buried. They were just gone in the blink of an eye. And then the second tower fell. And we were just horrified. How could this happen? And the news started to come out. You remember the picture that is so iconic now, the heaps of rubble. And that one piece of that building that was kind of leaning at an angle, and it looked like a war zone. It was, I guess. It was a war zone. And the American flag that somebody put up over it, that was reminiscent of the flag that went up on Iwo Jima, flag in a war zone. And we couldn't imagine that in America's biggest city, in the most important city in the world, in many ways, that this had happened. It was so horrific. And the pictures, you guys, you can visualize that, can't you? I should have put it up. That picture of the city, just that rubble, those buildings destroyed the rubble, and knowing that, like over 5,000 of our fellow citizens were just gone in that building. Firemen and people who worked in the building, policemen, it was horrible. When I read the first reading this morning from Jeremiah, that's what I thought about. And if you, the imagery in that text, I looked on the earth, and lo, it was waste and void. Isn't that what that picture looks like? It's void. The fruitful land was a desert, and the cities were laid in ruins. And that's what it made me think of. And it was interesting that today's lectionary reading, that's the reading that goes with today's date. Not because it's September 11th, because that's just the reading that goes with it. And I thought, how appropriate. But how can we sit here in church and think God shelters us? Where was God on 9/11? Where was God to shelter those people in those buildings? How can things like that happen if we believe in a merciful, loving God who treats us like a father? And how often in our lives, when things are hard, when bad things happen to us, when tragedies strike that are completely random, how can we continue to believe in God? Because God's supposed to protect us. And clearly, there was no protection from those planes on 9/11. But you see, the Jeremiah reading is from the Old Testament. And we are Christians. We are the children of the New Testament. We are believers in Jesus Christ. God gave men, when He created them, back in Genesis, in the Garden of Eden, He gave people free will. And with free will comes choices. And we've talked lots and lots in the last couple of weeks, in the last couple of months about choices. People make choices. And bad people make bad choices. And even sometimes good people make bad choices. And those bad choices have bad consequences for people. They have bad consequences for good people just as well as for bad people. So when those bad people made bad choices and flew those airplanes into those buildings, there were bad consequences for lots of people who were completely innocent and didn't deserve that. Because God gave us free will. You see, God didn't promise us that it would all be the Garden of Eden. We, as human beings, make bad choices, and we don't live in the garden. We live in the world. We live in a world where bad things happen. But we don't have to despair, because we have a Father who loves us and who shelters us. Now, how can He shelter us when those things happen? Well, think about the gospel from this morning. The gospel reading, Jesus told a parable, and He told stories. We can't really understand God. God is too big. God is too God for us to understand. And so Jesus explained God to us in stories. And He said that it's like if you had 100 sheep and one of them was missing. See, now listen, even in that story, one of the sheep is missing. If that guy lived in the Garden of Eden, the sheep wouldn't go missing, would it? We wouldn't lose things. Bad things wouldn't happen to us. But we don't live in the garden. We live in the world. And in the world, bad things happen. And so one of the sheep is missing. What does the man do? He goes out and he looks for it. We are missing from God's kingdom. when we have strayed, when we have gotten lost, God doesn't say, well, you had your choice and you made it, so, I'm here. If you want to come back, come on back. God looks for us. God puts the ones that are safe to the side where they're safe. That's us, right? We're the ones that are in church, right? And he goes out and he looks for the one that's not there. Sometimes we have been the one that's out there that's lost. And God drew us back to this place. You see, we didn't come back to this place just because we thought it would be a fun place to hang out on a Sunday morning. God went looking for us, and God brought us back. And the angels rejoiced. Can you imagine that? The angels rejoiced over our being brought back. The woman loses a coin, and she turns the house upside down looking for it. Not because of the value of the coin necessarily, but because something that was important was lost. We are important to God. God created each and every one of us. And we stray. We make bad choices. It wasn't just Adam and Eve in the garden making bad choices. We've talked about that over and over. We make those same bad choices. We think that we're God. We think that we know better than God, and we think that we can do it better than God. And so we're going to make our choices, not the choices that we know that God would have us make. And we stray. But God puts everything else to the side, and he comes out and he looks for us. And when we find God, it's not because we were looking, it's because God was already there waiting for us. When we found that safety and that security in God, he was already there waiting for us to bring us back. Softly and tenderly, Jesus is calling, right? He's calling us to come home. He's calling us to come to him. And so we live in a world where bad things happen. Hard times face all of us, and they will. There's no promise in the gospel that belief in Jesus Christ, that faith in God will protect us from those hard times. There's just no promise like that. We would like there to be, and sometimes false teachers will tell us that there is, but that's not true. Hard times happen. But we have a Father that is a shelter for us that we can go to. Think about the story I told the kids. It storms and the kids are scared. How many of you have had a scared kid come to you in the middle of a storm and cuddle up to you and sit on your lap and shake? You're their shelter. God is our shelter. The storms are still going to happen, but we have a safe place to go because we are children of the New Testament. We are children of God through Jesus Christ. God so loved the world that he sent his Son so that we could see how to be in a relationship with this God who is so big we can't even understand him. And so Jesus gives us the means to get to this God who provides us with this safety and this shelter. And so even though bad things happen, and although we all pray that another 9/11 never happens, we know that unless the end times come soon, that other tragedies will happen. Other hard things will happen to us, both as a nation and as individuals. Hard times are coming again at some point. But we don't have to be afraid because we know that even in those hard times, God is our shelter. And through Jesus Christ, we have access to that God, and we can be safe. We can be secure.